The topic is professional counseling services. We're talking to the director of the Williams Counseling Service, Mr. Dogan Williams, Reverend Dogan Williams, and we're also talking to Reverend DWilliams, who is the pastor of John Wesley United Methodist Church. And I think, Reverend Hayes, before we had our break, we were talking to you about some of the other problems that you often identify with people who do come to you with counseling problems, and et cetera. And so let's continue that by having you to elaborate upon that.
Well, many other problems that you will find in the church is, and I'm sure that Dr. Williams find that same problem, is that people with sickness also have a lot of stress in dealing with that sickness. And then also people have job stress. So you have a wide a range of problems that people can go through, and they need some type of counseling for. I think that Dr. Williams was correct when he said that people need a counselor just as much as they need an attorney, because I think your self-being and the health of your self-being is very important to each individual's life.
You know, Reverend Williams, I think you mentioned the fact of low self-esteem playing a very, very significant role in a large number of cases that you have to deal with. Why don't you give us sort of a scenario of low self-esteem? If a person were to come to you, for example, that you felt had low self-esteem, how would you counsel that person, and what are some of the steps that you would advise them to take dealing with such a problem?
Okay. Usually, when people call to make an appointment, I work with people by appointment only. This keep out of conflict with church and so forth. They have to call me. And so they call me, then I said, okay, I give them an appointment. And the first thing we do, we talk, what I call an icebreaker, who they are, what they do, and what their level of thinking. And then identify a problem, what they feel is a problem. Then we take it from there, and that problem can be multitudes, because most time if a person have one problem, they got another problem there also. And we take those and lift them out together through our dialogue. Then hopefully, and most time, they see themselves. Once they see themselves where they are, we together can take that off the table and start in some direction. Now, many of my people, many of them, financial problem is one of the major problems. Even if it's a marriage problem, finance is probably
the basis of it.
Basically hits it somewhere. So most people don't know really how to manage money. And financial planning is one of my specialties. I suppose I got 15 or 20 people, young and old, that I help with financial planning. Once we get them sold on this idea, how they can do it, and they do it, and some come back then and tell me, and I have them report back how they move from A to B and A to D, you know, A to M. Now, a lot of people are renters, and through this method, we help people to start a plan, regardless of how much the small money that they make, a plan to come out from renting a house to buying a house. Now, when I came into the counseling, my plan was to do one a year. 4 years ago, at the 6th year, after the 2 years ago, at the end of the 5th year, I had 6 families in that category, one a year, who had moved out from renting, who would not have had an opportunity to have a home under any circumstances. But they played their cards right, worked and spent their money right. It's not the amount of money, but what you do with that you make.
Very good. You know, Reverend Hayes, I think that as Reverend Williams has already indicated, that it is very, very important to at least get the question or the problems out on the table. And it would seem to me that discussion, that is the ability to communicate, do you find that to be true in the church, that is the ability for folks to solve their problems after they can identify those problems through some kind of conversation?
I think that most times that's the first step, is identifying the problem. And once you can get a person to identify their problems, then you can look for solutions. And sometimes it takes longer than expected, but at least you know what the problems are. And I do think that, again, Dr. Williams is correct, a lot of times the problems are more than one. They are usually there are multiple problems, and they stem from maybe one problem. But when you identify the problem, then you see other problems lag on because of that one problem. And so what you try to do is give that person confidence. And I think one of the modes is, of what Dr. Williams was saying, is that moving a person from renter to showing them that they can be a homeowner is a confident builder. And once you can get a person to believe in themselves, once you can get a person to be assured of what they can accomplish in this life, then I think that person can rise above that low self-esteem. They can rise above their problems, and they stop looking at their problems as negatives all the time, and they start looking at stepping stones. So I think if we can do that, we can get people to not just, if we can get them to talk about it, we can get them to start not looking at the negatives, but start looking at the stepping stones, and they can climb the mountain if they get the confidence and the assurance that they can accomplish. So that's some of the things that we try to do.
Very good. So what we're saying is that one of the basic elements of overcoming any kind of low self-esteem is to first get the folks who you're dealing with to recognize that they do have problems, and after they recognize that they've got problems, then to get the problems out on the table. And through a discussion of the problems and seeing it from a different angle, they have an opportunity to see this problem from a different perspective. And what the counselor actually does is that he brings knowledge and experience. In the case of the church, religious knowledge and religious experience. In the case of your professional area, professional knowledge and professional experience from courses and et cetera, that will allow them to better assess their problems. Is that what we're saying during this segment of the program? Both of you agree with that?
Right.
Then let us take this break, and then we'll come back and we'll